Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.
G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie Metal Guy here with Crank.com. So tonight, wherever you are in the world, it's a great pleasure that we're getting to have a chat with Kip Winger from legendary rock band Winger, who have carved out a name synonymous with musical mastery and unforgettable rock anthems. They are preparing to electrify Australian shores for the first and final time as well on their farewell tour as well. It is a tour that is set for a career-spanning spectacle brought to life by all you guys as well, not only yourself, but you've got Reb, Rod, Paul Taylor, and John Roth, and you guys are known for some iconic hits like 17, Madeline, Headed for a Heartbreak, and a whole bunch more. Looking forward to catching you guys in April. Kip, thank you so very much for joining me, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
We're done, mic drop. That's what I done with Udo Dirkschneider. I done out the intro, and he's like, "Oh, that's all. We're done now. See you. Thanks for the interview." You have announced this as the Wingers farewell tour. What has led to this decision to finally call it a day and mark this the final chapter?
Because I have a really intense classical career, and that's really where I'm headed now, and that's how I want to spend the next 30 years of my life, writing orchestral music. And I've had the last 15 I've been working towards that, and now I've got just so many gigs that I don't have enough time to get it done. And that artistically, really, it's really an artistic decision. And I think, on the last album, we've pretty much said everything we're going to say here. So, especially me, because I don't have it in me to write another record, and my voice, I'm having a little trouble with my voice. I can still sing pretty well, so I'd rather end when I can sing instead of being one of those guys that's up there not being able to do it at all. So, several personal reasons by me. Rod Morgenstein is 71, and he's winding down. And what's great about our band is that we're all really good friends. We've had a great run. We love to hang out, and so I will miss the hang because it's great. But I'm very excited to continue evolving in the way that I've been doing in the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, some of your earlier albums were absolutely huge. And I know with the self-titled one, it kind of did take a little bit for that to kind of find its ground and footing. And that, excuse me, that's reminding me to go for the interview right now with you, but we're right in that. That first album kind of did take a little bit to kind of get off the ground as well. You kind of toured quite extensively for it. And then it kind of got picked up and started, I think it was triple platinum or something like that by the time it ended up going. What was it like making those first few albums then? Because I know it kind of would have been a lot different compared to the ones you've made now.
Well, I consider myself very lucky having grown up in this business pre-internet.
Yep.
And it was a real struggle to get like a record deal, and going through that thing where you got to go to LA or New York and, kind of pound the pavement and do all that kind of thing, and then find a producer and a label and all that stuff, and working on analog tape. And, I'm a dinosaur, but I'm very happy that was the way it went for me, because coming from that legacy, it really gives you a different perspective on how to make an album, and nowadays, our albums are largely irrelevant because people, record singles. I disagree with that, and I will always maintain that even if you're a new artist, just making albums in your living room, that you should conceptualize the concept of an album, because it's a great way to encapsulate, a certain amount of songs and represent a certain period of time in your life, and elaborate on it with more than one song, But I digress. It was my story's very unique in some ways and very similar to everyone else's in other ways. I mean, I was lucky to get some gigs at Atlantic Studio. I was friends with Beau Hill. Reb Beach was in the studio doing something else, and we met and we wrote some songs, and then didn't go anywhere. And then I joined Alice Cooper, and I mean, I got to give Beau Hill a lot of credit to the beginning of this whole thing. You know, he gave me a shot and gave Reb a shot, and then I met Reb through him, and kind of that whole, and helped us get a record deal and all that kind of stuff. So, and you're right, the first record came out and it was dead in the water for 6 months or so, and finally we got. I think the first tour we got was Scorpions.
Scorpions.
I want to say, yeah. And so, now the misconception about the band is that we were like studio musicians. That's not true. I grew up in a band with my two brothers, and we were like road rats. I was Mr. High School Dropout. And Reb was pretty much the same. He did tons of gigs with his local band. It's just that when Reb floated into New York, he was so much better than everyone else. He got hired on all these albums, and then they called us studio musicians because we did a lot of studio work. But I mean, anybody would, you're getting, hey, you want to play bass on this? Do you want to play bass on that? And so for me, what people don't realize is that I was waiting tables at a restaurant, and in between, I'd get a gig maybe every other month, playing one track on an album, going, "Oh, this is great." And then finally, I met Alice Cooper, and got to go on tour with him, which really changed my life. From waiting tables one night to playing headlining arenas, and so that was awesome. But I had already played thousands of gigs with my brother, so it wasn't like I wasn't like, oh my God, this is incredible. I mean, of course I was thinking it was incredible, but I was ready for that. There was. And so was Reb,
All you guys were super, super talented musicians. That's what some people probably didn't understand at the time. You guys, each one of you guys came from a super talented musical background. You like jazz, classical, all this kind of stuff that kind of came in to make up the musician that you were as well. And then all these other guys, they were extremely talented musicians, and it shows from the career and the body that you guys have worked with. You've worked with the who's who of the rock scene as well, which people don't realize.
That's true, and thanks for pointing that out. I mean, Rod Morgenstein alone, coming from Dixie Dregs, I mean, he's frighteningly good. And Paul Taylor, I mean, man, if you put all the people we've worked with together, I mean, you got Alice Cooper, Shaka Khan, Bob Dylan, Twisted Sister, Steve Perry, Cinderella, Tommy Shaw, Mick Mars, Alan Parsons. I sang for Alan Parsons, Rod, Jordan Rudess. I mean, Reb's played in Night Ranger, Doc, and Alice Cooper, Whitesnake. So, and John started with Black Oak, Arkansas, and he played with Survivor, and then now he's been in Starship. So that was part of the reason why the timing on this tour was tricky, because I really wanted John to come, and we love Howie Simon, who subs for John when John can't be there, but really, we consider John an original member because he goes so far back to '92, and so, yeah, thanks for noticing that. And what's funny is that we're just all good friends. We just dig the hang.
Yeah, so those earlier albums, they're absolute classics now, but also like you kind of must look back sometimes, and it must be great that you were able to come back and finish these last three albums kind of a little bit more on your own terms. And those tracks, you can't take anything away from those classic albums, but as you kind of mentioned, it was a different time. And so those record labels kind of controlled a little bit more of the image you were trying to put out and kind of the sound that you wanted to go for. Is there something you can look back now and go, man, I wish we could just do things a little bit different back then? Or is there any regrets or anything you think back for? Or is it just like, fuck, it is what it is, and I'm able to finish off on the terms I like now?
I have two regrets. One is the mix on the second record. I would have liked to have remixed that before we released it, and I wish I had worked on a couple more songs on that record. People love that record, but for me, there's some things about it that I would change. Um, and on the first record, I would have turned the cymbals up. I mean, now that I've told you that, it's going to bother you. So there's not enough cymbals on that album, and I'd like to remix those two records actually. But by the time we got to Pull is the album that I made because I was actually. I mean, look, I produced that album. I mean, hands down, there was nothing different from any of the demos. Mike Shipley engineered and mixed it and has a producer credit, but when it came to like the production of it, I did all that, and that was all me. But um, Mike was the Picasso of mixing engineers, and he just made that sound so good. And learning, and I've had the very good fortune of working with great, like Bo was really talented. Mike Shipley was supernatural, and then I later worked with Alan Parsons. So I get to pick these guys' brains, and ask them what they do in the studio and stuff. So that was very helpful. Um, and look, I don't, I'm good in the studio, but I can't do everything. So I know I'm good at knowing what I can't do, but I'm losing my train of thought. You were asking me if there's any regrets. Those would be the only ones that I thought I would change.
Yeah, looking back at the beginnings in 1987, kind of when you guys were just kind of kicking off, did you envision yourself still kind of being here in 2025, coming back and doing this final tour and reaching new audiences today?
Well, I knew that I would be doing this, and I also knew back then that I would be transitioning to classical music. So yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I knew that. Listen, I have a rare. I am. How do I say that? I'm blessed, and it never loses my consciousness that I've been given a gift where I have the ability to make people feel things with music, and that is something that I've carried my whole life. And even if I was completely destitute, I would still be a composer. I mean, there's no other way for me. I mean, I'm just that guy. So, um, as far as having an audience worldwide 35 years later, now that I wouldn't have necessarily predicted. That's just, hard work and luck, man. We're just, and I chalk a lot of that up to the fact that the chemistry in our band was really good.
Yep.
You know, Reb and I work really well together. Rod fits in there. The puzzles all fit really well, the puzzle pieces. No, we never had any fights. There was never any legal battles, that kind of thing. So, and I think what's really interesting is that now the music is more popular than it was all along the way, except for the beginning. Like we were really big in the beginning, and then there was a big down spot with grunge and all that.
Yeah.
It's all, but very organically, it's come back to, um, getting. Well, there's high demand for us to do a lot of gigs. Let's put it that way. Especially in the U.S.
Yeah, well, as I was saying, people probably don't realize and have underestimated the talent of you guys, but Winger have had a huge impact not only in the hard rock scene, but also, as you mentioned, a lot of these bands kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of metal bands that are out there today. So I look back on the career of Winger and someone like yourself as well, just with that utmost admiration. And the latest albums are really, really bloody good as well. The musicianship on them, you know what I mean? Coming back in that IV album, then releasing the Karma, then the Better Days Coming and Seven. I know that would have been a lot of hard work, but it would have been really fulfilling and gratifying for you guys to come back and make these albums a little bit more on your own terms.
Right. I'm sorry I didn't catch that part of your question in my answer, but yeah, I mean, like I said, by the time I got to the third album, we were still on Atlantic, but I was in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And the subsequent albums, I just listen when kind of by that time I was like, no one's ever going to tell me what to do with my music. Okay, the end. I don't care if it doesn't sell one copy. Done, because I just couldn't do it anymore. Like on the first two records, it was a little bit, well, we don't hear the single and that whole mentality. It wasn't so bad for us, I have to say. We did have a lot of autonomy, but you still had, even on Pull, I had the proverbial A&R guy come in and go, "Can't you put the word love right there?" And like the stupidest suggestions ever, and where you have to like kick them out of rehearsal and tell them never to come back. So I know a lot of other people in bands that have had the same kind of shit go on. So nowadays, yeah, and also technology enabled artists to do that,
Yep.
which is a great thing, I think, because I don't, in general, I don't believe in needing a producer. I think if you, as an artist, if you're responsible enough to yourself about all the different dimensions of being an artist, ultimately you won't need a producer. Some people do need it, and it's very helpful. And so I don't look down on it. I just think that um, a lot of people that think they might need a producer actually don't need one.
Yeah, and it's a different time. Like you're able to, as you say, like I'm still a massive album person, but you're able to release music and kind of have that more control, but release it to the fans as well, like i.e. the digital streaming platforms. But it's a double-edged sword at times, and you probably got to see the positives and negatives. And I'm always going on about as well. Yeah, you can get the music out there straight away, but people aren't listening to whole albums. Whereas you chuck in that whole 7 album, you listen to it all through, and you can tell that you put effort into the way that the track listings are and the
Oh yeah.
story that you are trying to tell with it. And you can kind of listen to when artists are going to make whole albums and not just an album with a couple of singles and fillers in between.
Listen, I'll never stray from that idea of making an album. Although, I mean, in classical, it's totally different. You kind of make, it's like a whole piece of music. It's a 20-minute piece of music. It all belongs to itself. That's kind of a different thing. But in the rock and pop world, I would never stray from the concept of making a record. I know that the marketing plan of now is single, 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 and then maybe release an album at the end of it, but or not. But the album encapsulates a period of your life better than anything, better than a string of singles ever could.
Yep.
And but that's coming from a truly artistic point of view. I think it may not be for everybody, but even I think, even artists like Lady Gaga, I mean, she just put an album out. It's like, I think there's a thing there. Taylor Swift. I mean, I think they're thinking about it in those terms, even though the marketing is totally different now. I have yet to do the new marketing. I do a couple singles first and then put the album out. That's super old school, but and like I have a double album's worth of solo material that's waiting to be recorded. And I've thought a lot about this exact point, but for me, even if I put every single song out before the album, I would know what the album is before I did that. I
Yeah.
would make the album first because that's just my old school mentality. And I
Tell me.
think people dig that. I mean, I think it really is I think it's like going to dinner and not getting your entree. Like, okay, well, I'll have a side of beans and a cup of coffee and this kind of thing. It's like, wait a minute, give me the thing here.
Yeah, it's good because you have your old school fans that are going to be like cranking the whole albums. You have some of the other guys going through and checking out the singles, but I cannot recommend enough going and buying whole albums. Tell me about your work in orchestral composition because I did go and check some of your scores out. Believe it or not, I'll go from listening to Cradle of Filth to heavy rock to At Night. It's got to be classical music every
Oh, right
night
on.
as I'm going to sleep. So tell me a little bit about your work involved in that and what it's like, the differences between making that kind of stuff. I know it's a huge amount of differences, but tell me about what you're doing over there as well.
Thank you. I started at a very low point in my life when I was 35. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go do exactly what I've always wanted to do and properly study how to do uh, orchestral music on their terms. And so it took years and years of studying what you would normally go through university, studying counterpoint and harmony and the, understanding how classical music evolved. And when we're talking about classical music, I mean, theoretically speaking, there was a period of time when it was the classical music, and then romantic period, then impressionistic period, and so I like to refer to it as orchestral music because that doesn't define a time. Contemporary classical music or contemporary orchestral music. It took a long time for me to understand how to really make an orchestra work, and I'm still. This is what's exciting for me is that I'll be spending the next 30 years of my life trying to figure that one out because even though I've been successful in some pieces that I've written, it's this thing where you can never learn enough, and that's one aspect of it. And the second aspect is there's always someone out there that kicks your ass, you know. And so I find that exhilarating. With rock music, there's nothing that I listen to that I can't digest it like that, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, that doesn't mean it's not great, you know. It just means that it doesn't hold my attention anymore, you know. And I'm kind of referring to these bigger works to stimulate my my thoughts and my soul for how I want to continue on and go forward expressing myself. I've been very, very lucky, man. I've almost every piece I've written has gotten a major performance or more than one. And I have the world premiere of my violin concerto that I spent almost 5 years writing is May 9 and 10 with the Nashville Symphony. This incredible virtuoso Peter Otto is performing it, and the conductor Giancarlo Guerrero has been extremely generous to me with his commissions and performing works that I had done before this. So um, it's really extraordinary, man. I mean, I'm just really lucky. This is part of the reason why I'm exiting the rock scene because I've been somewhat accepted in this world, and getting orchestral performances like very difficult, man. You know, so it's really exciting, and
I absolutely love it. I was listening to conversations with Nijinsky. I had a good listen to that, and I even went and checked out the classical musical stuff you done as well. The Jack Get Jack, that was it as
oh,
well. It
right
was
on, right on.
really really
Oh, thank
bloody
you.
cool. I love the storytelling with it. So as a songwriter, like I know I'm sidetracking off of the Winger stuff here, but I love the orchestral stuff as well. So as a songwriter, when you are making these orchestral pieces, are you like making a story? Do you have a story in your head you're trying to tell, or is there, how does that go with making these pieces? Because they would be quite intricate and take a while to make.
Yeah, well, it goes two ways. You've heard of Franz Liszt, right?
Yeah.
So Liszt was this virtuoso pianist who was also he wrote great orchestral music. He was the first one to say, "Wait a minute, we don't need a narrative. Let's just write some symphonic work. It doesn't have to follow any narrative." And he deemed it, or in that time they deemed it like a tone poem.
Yeah.
Now that's one way that it goes. Sometimes I'll write something that's got no narrative whatsoever. On the other hand, and that's the way a lot of things have happened to me. For example, Nijinsky started out as a piece that I was just writing, and then I developed the narrative after I realized all the things that I was thinking about while I was writing it. So the narrative kind of worked itself out as I wrote that piece. Right now, I'm embarking on a new work that I'm developing the narrative ahead of time because it's going to need lyrics. It's for a really incredible singer, and we're working out. Her name is Hila Plitman, and we're just starting this idea about possibly writing an orchestral piece for soprano and orchestra. And so I need words, right? And so then, you kind of have to think about the narrative. And it's very, very challenging, man, because, in one thing that's very difficult about modern orchestral music is it has to fit through this tiny little hole.
Yeah.
Like that's the amount of space you get where it has to you have to know your shit, you got to know your harmony. It can't sound like a relic from the past. It's got to be modern, but it's got to be cool. It can't be cheesy. There's this whole set of things that you're kind of limitations really that you're looking at. Oh my God, how do I get through that hole? The irony of it is that with that set of limitations, anything goes, because there's really no rules to modern orchestral music anymore, and so artistically it suits me perfectly. Because I really am that cut your ear off guy, I'm like, I tried writing music for film. I can't do that because it's more of like a music to order kind of thing. Yep. You're working for the director, and it's a very specific art. And I revere a lot of film music. I really love it. But it's not what I can do. I can't do that. I'm the guy that just has to create this thing and put it out there. This funny, I recently met Thomas Dolby, who I was a huge fan of. I mean, huge fan. And we had this long discussion about exactly that. Anyway, neither there. I just want to say I'm a huge Thomas Dolby fan.
Exactly, and I love getting lost in the music.
I got to talk to him for like an hour. It was like one of the greatest days of my life.
Oh, damn straight. Yeah, I love getting lost in the music and orchestral stuff, as you can tell as well, but also love rocking out to Winger. And I cannot wait to see you guys. You are due to hit Australian shores, kicking off in Melbourne Friday, 4th of April, 170 Russell, following on Saturday, Sydney, Manning Bar. Then down to my hometown of Adelaide, 6th of April, Adelaide at the Gov, 8th of April, Brisbane Princess Theatre, Tuesday, 10th of April, Perth. Kip, this has been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Do you have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, mate?
Well, just, Australia, man, come out and see us because this is it for us. And we've had a lot of people over the years say, come to Australia. So here we are. So, man, go out and get your tickets. Because we tried to come before, it didn't work out. I promised we'd come back, so we're coming back, and we will be there. We're not canceling. We will be there, so don't be afraid if you buy a ticket that we'll cancel again. And we are gonna be there. I'm talking to you from Japan right now, so we're doing Japan, Australia. Go get your tickets, and we will love to see you guys.
Damn straight, we won't be getting enough, that's for sure. Everyone grab some Winger, chuck it in the stereos, crank it up really loud, buy all those bloody tickets, catch you down under, mate. Cheers.
Okay, man, thanks.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.